The 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Friday, February 26, 1993. A yellow Ford van, filled with several men, enters the basement parking lot of the World Trade Center in New York. The van then parks illegally. The men light four 20-foot fuses, get into a trailing car, and drive off. At approximately 12:18 p.m., a massive homemade bomb explodes, knocking out sprinklers, generators, elevators, the public address system, emergency command center, and more than half of the high-voltage lines that feed electricity to the complex. The blast creates a nearly 100-foot crater over the subway station beneath, causing 6 people to be killed almost immediately, and leaving about 1,000 civilians with varying degrees of injury. The blast causes immediate mayhem, and about 50,000 people are evacuated from the towers. The towers are closed down and will not reopen for a month. This act of violence, the first major attack committed by Islamic extremists on American soil, sent shockwaves throughout the country. People wanted answers. Who carried out this attack and why?
The most militant and violent terrorist group in the world at the time, Al-Qaeda, founded in Saudi Arabia in 1989 and now operates out of Afghanistan, Peshawar, and Pakistan. Al-Qaeda's goals are to drive Americans and American influence out of Muslim nations, to destroy Israel, and take out all pro-Western dictatorship around the Middle East. Al-Qaeda's first attack on American soil was the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Arrests were made days later for the bombing. Mohammed Salameh was arrested after he claims a refund on a rented van authorities believe carried the explosives. 4 defendants, Mohammed Salameh, Nidal Al-Yadad, Mohammed Al-Balam, and Mohammed Al-Aja, are convicted. They are sentenced to prison terms for 420 years. In 1998, the sentences are vacated. In 1999, the men are resentenced to terms for more than 100 years. The mastermind behind this act of terrorism was Ramzi Youssef. His goal was to avenge the sufferings the Palestine people had endured at the hands of the U.S. when we aided Israel. When founded, Youssef was sentenced for 240 years. The 1993 bombing was considered a failed bombing attempt by Al-Qaeda that ultimately led to a terrorist success in 2001.
The short-term outcomes of the 1993 bombing were the knocked-out generators, elevators, public address system, emergency command center, and more than half the high-voltage lines that fed electricity to the complex. 6 people also died and around 1,000 were injured, mostly from the rising smoke throughout the buildings. This being the first terrorist attack in the United States completely shocked Americans. The security also became more strict. The towers got revamped emergency procedures, particularly with regard to evacuation of the towers. The New York Port Authority was to govern as the main security, and all packages were to be scanned at various checkpoints. People believed that they would not attack again, but the 1993 bombing was only the tipping point in what would become a new type of war against the threat of terrorism. The unsuccessful attempt to bring the towers down caused Al-Qaeda to plan 9/11, the terrorist attack that did bring down the towers from a series of plane crashes into each tower.
The death of leader Osama bin Laden has nowhere near stopped the spread of Al-Qaeda, while some say it may have even helped it. Today, the current status of Al-Qaeda is weaker than before, but still very dangerous. Ayman al-Zawahiri was named the new and current leader of Al-Qaeda on June 16, 2011, after Osama bin Laden's death. Even with the death of Osama, Al-Qaeda remains a significant force, particularly through combined syndicates in countries like Yemen and Syria. The goals of Al-Qaeda haven't changed, and they are to drive Americans and American influence out of all Muslim nations, especially Saudi Arabia. They want to destroy Israel and topple pro-Western dictatorships around the Middle East. Today, Islamic terrorism has grown, not just including Al-Qaeda, but all forms of terrorist groups, from the attacks on 9/11 to the creation of ISIS. Terrorism is still growing, and we as Americans need to be prepared at all times.